Dr. Elena Vasquez never imagined her Tuesday morning would begin with falling from the sky. One moment she was checking plant samples in the research lab aboard the Starship Meridian. In the next moment, alarms were screaming throughout the ship. Red lights flashed everywhere as the captain's voice boomed over the speakers. All crew to emergency pods immediately. We're going down. Elena's hand shook as she grabbed her research bag and ran toward the escape pods. She had been on dozens of space missions before, but nothing like this. Through the ship's windows, she could see massive rocks floating in space, each one bigger than a building. The ship was spinning out of control, hitting one asteroid after another. She barely made it into Pod 7 before the automatic doors sealed shut. The next few minutes felt like being inside a washing machine during an earthquake. Elena squeezed her eyes shut and held on tight as her pod shot away from the dying ship. She could hear metal groaning and computers beeping, but then everything went quiet. When Elena woke up, her head was pounding like someone was hitting it with a hammer. Smoke filled the small pod, and she could taste metal in her mouth. She pushed against the door, but it wouldn't budge. After several tries, she kicked it hard with both feet. The door flew open with a loud crash. The first thing she noticed was how bright everything was. The sun overhead was bigger than Earth's sun, casting everything in a golden glow. The air smelled strange, like flowers mixed with something she couldn't identify. Elena stumbled out of her damaged pod and looked around. She was standing in what looked like a desert, but not like any desert she had ever seen. The ground was covered in purple sand that sparkled in the sunlight. Strange plants grew here and there, with thick stems and leaves that seemed to shimmer. In the distance, she could see mountains that looked blue against the horizon. Elena checked her emergency kit. Her communication device was cracked, showing only static when she tried to call for help. The water purifier was working, which was good news. Her medical scanner showed she had a few bruises, but nothing serious. But when she tried to activate her rescue beacon, only a weak red light blinked back at her. Great, she said to herself. Just great. She started walking, hoping to find other survivors or maybe some shelter. The purple sand crunched under her boots with each step. After about 20 minutes, she saw something metal reflecting the sunlight ahead. As she got closer, she realized it was another escape pod, but this one looked different from the human pods she knew. The pod was sleek and silver, with curved lines that reminded her of a teardrop. Strange symbols were carved along its side. Elena approached carefully, not sure what she might find inside. The door was already open, and she could see movement inside. "Hello," she called out. "Is someone there?" A figure emerged from the pod, and Elena's breath caught in her throat. It was clearly not human, but it wasn't scary like the monsters in old movies. The being stood about 7 feet tall, with long arms and legs. Its skin was a beautiful blue-green color that seemed to change slightly in the light, like looking at the ocean on a sunny day. The creature's face was the most surprising part. It had large eyes that took up much of its face, colored like emeralds with flecks of gold. Its features were gentle and somehow familiar, even though Elena had never seen anything like it before. When it saw her, it stopped moving and tilted its head to one side, studying her with curiosity rather than fear. Hello," Elena said again, not sure if it could understand her. The being made a sound that was musical, like someone humming a song she almost recognized. It pointed to itself and said something in a language that sounded like wind chimes mixed with whispers. Then it pointed to Elena and made a questioning sound. Elena pointed to herself. "Elena," she said slowly. "My name is Elena." The being repeated her name, but it came out sounding like Elena with a musical quality that made it sound prettier than when she said it. Then it pointed to itself again and said what sounded like Zephyr. "Zephyr," Elena repeated, and the being nodded, which was surprisingly human-like. For the next few minutes, they stood there looking at each other, neither sure what to do next. Elena noticed that Zephyr had been injured in the crash. There was a cut on his arm that was leaking a silver liquid that must have been his blood. She pointed to the wound, and then to her medical kit. Zephyr seemed to understand. He held out his arm. watching carefully as Elena cleaned the cut. The silver liquid stopped flowing when she applied a bandage, and Zephyr made a sound that seemed grateful. Elena looked around at the empty landscape. "Well, Zephyr, it looks like we're stuck here together." She pulled out her scanner and checked for water sources. The device beeped and pointed toward the mountains. Zephyr watched with interest as she showed him the readings. He nodded and pointed in the same direction, then made walking motions with his fingers. They gathered supplies from both escape pods. Elena was amazed to see that Zephyr's pod contained tools and equipment that looked far more advanced than anything humans had built. Some devices seemed to glow with their own light, while others made soft humming sounds when Zephyr touched them. As they started walking toward the mountains, Elena kept glancing at her strange companion. She had studied alien life forms for years, but always from a distance, always through computer screens and research papers. Now she was walking next to one, and he seemed as curious about her as she was about him. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that were more beautiful than any sunset Elena had ever seen. The purple sand beneath their feet began to glow softly, as if it absorbed sunlight during the day and released it at night. Strange sounds echoed across the landscape, like distant music or singing. Elena realized this was going to be unlike any research mission she had ever been on. She wasn't just studying an alien world now, she was living on one. And she wasn't alone. She had Zephyr, whatever he was, wherever he came from. As they walked through the alien twilight, Elena wondered if anyone would ever find them. She wondered if she would ever see Earth again. But looking at Zephyr walking beside her, she realized she wasn't as scared as she should have been. Something about his presence made her feel less alone in this strange new world. The first day on the planet was ending, but Elena had a feeling the real adventure was just beginning. 3 months had passed since Elena and Zephyr first met on the strange purple desert. What started as the confused survivors trying to stay alive had slowly turned into something Elena never expected. They had become a team. Their camp by the crystal-clear stream looked nothing like the desperate shelter they had thrown together on that first night. Elena smiled as she looked at their home. Zephyr had shown her how to weave the local plants into strong walls that kept out the wind and rain. In return, she had taught him how to purify water and organize their food supplies to last longer. "Good morning, Zephyr," Elena said as she stepped out of her sleeping area. She had learned to speak several words in his musical language, though her human voice could never make the sounds quite right. Zephyr looked up from the strange device he was working on. His large green eyes sparkled as he smiled. "Good morning, Elena," he replied in English. His accent made her name sound like a song, and somehow she had grown to love hearing it that way. Over the past months, they had developed their own way of talking. Zephyr learned English much faster than Elena learned his language, but they mixed both languages together with lots of hand gestures and drawings in the sand. Sometimes Elena felt like they were creating their own special language that belonged just to them. "What are you building today?" Elena asked, pointing to the glowing device in Zephyr's hands. He held it up proudly. The object looked like a cross between a flower and a piece of jewelry, with petals made of some kind of metal that shifted colors in the light. "Energy collector," he said carefully, practicing the English words from sun, from wind, from. He gestured around them. Elena watched in amazement as he demonstrated. The device began to hum softly and glow brighter as it absorbed energy from their surroundings. This was the kind of technology that Earth scientists could only dream about. "Incredible," she whispered. "Your people must be incredibly advanced." Zephyr's expression grew sad for a moment. "My people far away, very far." He pointed up at the sky. "Maybe never see again." Elena felt her heart ache for him. She knew exactly how he felt. Every night, she looked up at the unfamiliar stars and wondered if she would ever see Earth again. But having Zephyr there made the loneliness bearable. "We'll figure something out," she said, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. His skin was warm and had a texture like smooth stone. "We're smart. We can build a stronger signal device." Zephyr nodded, but then he did something that surprised her. He placed his long, graceful hand over hers and closed his eyes. Elena. He said softly, I want to show you something, something my people do. What kind of something? She asked, suddenly nervous. We share thoughts, share feelings, help understand each other better. His eyes opened, and she could see hope mixed with worry in them. But only if you want, only if you trust. Elena's scientific mind immediately became curious. She had read about telepathic species in theoretical papers, but she never imagined she might meet one. Is it safe? Very safe. Like opening door to let friend visit your house. You can close door anytime. Elena thought about it over the past 3 months. Zephyr had never done anything to hurt her. He had saved her life several times, sharing his food when hers ran low and protecting her from the strange creatures that roamed the planet at night. If anyone in the universe deserved her trust, it was him. Okay, she said quietly, show me. Zephyr's face lit up with joy. He moved so he was sitting directly in front of her, their knees almost touching. Close eyes. Think of something peaceful. Ellen closed her eyes and tried to relax. She thought about the sound of rain on their shelter roof, which had become one of her favorite sounds on this planet. Then something amazing happened. It started as a warm feeling, like drinking hot chocolate on a cold day. But then Elena began to sense something else, something that wasn't quite her own thoughts. She could feel Zephyr's presence in her mind, gentle and careful, like he was tiptoeing through her thoughts. Suddenly, she could feel what he was feeling. His loneliness, yes, but also his gratitude for finding her. His amazement at how quickly she learned things, his respect for her intelligence and her kindness, and underneath it all, a warm affection that made her heart skip a beat. But more than feelings, she could see images from his memories. His home planet, with its silver trees and purple oceans. His family, tall and graceful like him, with the same kind eyes. His work as what seemed to be some kind of scientist or explorer. And then the fear and confusion when his ship was destroyed. In return, without meaning to, Elena found herself sharing her own memories. Her childhood on Earth, playing in her grandmother's garden, her years studying alien life, always dreaming of moments like this, her excitement when she first joined the space program, and her current wonder at finding herself living alongside an actual alien being. When they opened their eyes, both of them were smiling. That was incredible. Eleanor breathed. I could feel everything you were feeling. And I could feel your curiosity, Zephyr said, his voice full of warmth. Your mind is so bright, so full of questions. It's beautiful. From that day forward, they began sharing the mind connection regularly. It helped them communicate better. But it did something else too. It made them understand each other in a way that went deeper than words. Elena learned that Zephyr's people valued harmony and connection above all else. They lived in balance with their environment and saw all living things as connected. Zephyr learned that humans were driven by curiosity and a desire to explore and understand the universe around them. But the more they shared their thoughts and feelings, the more Elena began to notice changes in herself. Her senses seemed sharper. She could predict when storms were coming hours before they arrived. She could find water sources just by feeling where they might be. Sometimes she even seemed to understand what the local animals were thinking. Is this normal? She asked Zephyr. One evening as they watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, Zephyr tilted his head thoughtfully. Mind sharing changes both people, makes stronger connection to world around us. Your mind is very adaptable. Elena wasn't sure if she should be excited or worried about these changes. But when she looked at Zephyr, sitting beside her as they watched the alien stars come out, she realized she felt more at home than she had in months. Maybe even more at home than she had ever felt on Earth. Zephyr, she said softly, do you think we'll ever get rescued? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, maybe rescue not most important thing anymore. Elena knew exactly what he meant. Somehow, without realizing it, this strange planet had begun to feel like home. And Zephyr had begun to feel like more than just a fellow survivor. He had begun to feel like family. 6 months on the alien planet had changed everything for Elena. What started as a fight for survival had become something she never could have imagined. Their little camp by the stream now felt more like home than any place she had ever lived. Elena woke up that morning feeling different, though she couldn't quite explain how. The changes in her body and mind had been gradual over the past months, but today something felt more intense. Her connection to the planet around her seemed stronger than ever. "Good morning," Zephyr said softly as she stepped outside their shelter. He was tending to their garden, where they grew a mix of earth vegetables from her emergency seeds and local plants that Zephyr had shown her were safe to eat. "Morning," Eleanor replied, but her voice sounded distant even to herself. She could feel everything around her with unusual clarity. The plants in their garden seemed to pulse with life energy. The stream nearby sang with a music she had never noticed before. Even the rocks beneath her feet felt alive somehow. Zephyr looked up at her with concern in his large green eyes. Over the months, he had become incredibly good at reading her moods and expressions. "You feel different today," he said, standing up and moving closer to her. Elena nodded. "Everything seems more connected somehow, like I can feel the whole planet breathing." This wasn't the first time Elena had experienced these enhanced sensations. Over the past few months, their regular mind-sharing sessions had been changing her in ways that fascinated and sometimes worried her. She could predict weather patterns days in advance. She could find underground water sources just by walking over them. Sometimes she even seemed to know what the local creatures were thinking. "The connection grows stronger," Zephyr said gently. "Your mind learns to see the world as my people do." Elena looked at him, this being who had become so important to her. Zephyr stood nearly 7 feet tall, with his beautiful blue-green skin that shimmered in the morning light. His movements were graceful, almost like dancing, and his voice carried musical tones that no human voice could make. Yet somehow, he felt more familiar to her than any person she had ever known. "Zephyr," she said quietly, "what's happening to us?" He stepped closer, and Elena could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. "We share more than thoughts now," he said. "We share essence, life force. It is something my people call soul bonding." Elena's heart began to beat faster. She had studied alien cultures for years, but experiencing one was completely different from reading about it. "What does that mean, exactly?" Zephyr looked nervous, which was unusual for him. He had always been confident and calm, even in the most dangerous situations they had faced. "It means our spirits recognize each other, connect in ways that go beyond physical form." Elena felt a flutter of emotion that she couldn't quite identify. Over the past months, her feelings for Zephyr had grown from gratitude to friendship to something deeper that she had been afraid to name. He was alien, completely different from any human she had ever known. Yet when she looked at him, she felt a warmth and connection that went beyond anything she had ever experienced. Is that allowed?" she asked, feeling foolish for the question. Zephyr's expression grew sad. "On my world, such connections are sacred, but they have never happened between different species before. Our scientists would say it is impossible, but it's happening anyway," Elena said softly. "Yes," Zephyr whispered, "it is happening anyway." They stood there for a long moment, looking at each other. Elena could feel the energy flowing between them, like an invisible current that grew stronger every day. When Zephyr reached out and gently touched her face with his long, graceful fingers, she leaned into the touch instead of pulling away. "Elena," he said, his voice full of wonder, "I never expected to find someone like you, someone who could understand my people's ways, someone who could share the deep connection." Elena closed her eyes and concentrated on the feeling of his touch. Through their connection, she could sense his emotions as clearly as her own. His amazement at finding her, his deep affection that had grown into something stronger, his worry about what their unusual bond might mean. "I can feel what you're feeling," she whispered. "It's incredible." That evening, they sat together watching the sunset paint the alien sky in brilliant purples and golds. The planets and moons were rising, casting everything in a soft, romantic light. Elena had never felt more at peace than she did in that moment. "Zephyr," she said quietly, I need to tell you something." He turned to look at her, his large eyes reflecting the moonlight. "What is it?" Elena took a deep breath. "I've been having the strangest dreams lately. Dreams where I can see colors that don't exist, where I can hear music in languages I don't understand, where I feel like I'm flying without leaving the ground." Zephyr's expression grew serious. "Those are not dreams, Elena. Those are visions. Signs that our connection has grown very deep." "What kind of signs?" Zephyr was quiet for a long moment, as if deciding whether to tell her something important. Finally, he said, "Among my people, when two souls bond completely, they can create new life together, not through physical means, but through the joining of their life essences." Elena felt her breath catch in her throat. "That's not possible. We're completely different species." "Science says many things are impossible," Zephyr said gently. "But the heart knows truths that science has not yet discovered." Elena stood up and walked to the edge of their camp, looking out at the alien landscape that had become her world. The idea was impossible, ridiculous even. Yet something deep inside her told her that Zephyr was right. Their connection had become something beyond what either of their species had ever experienced before. "Elena," Zephyr said, coming to stand beside her, "I know this is frightening. It frightens me too. But I also know that what we have found together is precious. It is a bridge between our peoples. A new kind of understanding." Elena turned to look at him. In the moonlight, he looked almost ethereal, like something from a beautiful dream. But when she reached out and took his hand, he felt completely real and solid. "I care about you, Zephyr," she said quietly, "more than I thought was possible. And I care for you, Elena, more than my people's words can express." They stood there holding hands under the alien stars, two beings from different worlds who had found something extraordinary together. Elena knew that whatever happened next would change both of their lives forever. But for the first time since crashing on this strange planet, she wasn't afraid of change. She was ready to embrace whatever came next. 8 months. Elena stared at her reflection in the still water of their stream, hardly believing what she was seeing. Her body had changed in ways that seemed impossible. Yet here she was, clearly expecting a child that shouldn't exist, according to everything she knew about biology and science. "How are you feeling this morning?" Zephyr asked gently, bringing her a cup of the herbal tea he had learned to make from local plants. His concern for her had grown stronger each day, as her condition became more obvious. "Different," Elena said, accepting the warm cup gratefully. "Everything feels more intense today. I can hear the heartbeat." Zephyr's large green eyes widened with wonder. "You can hear the baby's heartbeat?" Elena nodded, placing her hand on her growing belly. "Not with my ears. It's like I can feel it through our connection. And Zephyr, I think the baby can hear us too." This pregnancy was unlike anything either of them had expected. Elena's enhanced abilities, which had been growing stronger over the months of mind-sharing with Zephyr, had reached levels that amazed even him. She could sense things happening miles away. She could predict exactly when storms would arrive and how long they would last. Most remarkably, she seemed to be able to communicate with their unborn child. "What does the baby feel like?" Zephyr asked, sitting beside her on the smooth rocks by the water's edge. Elena closed her eyes and concentrated on the warm presence she could sense inside her. "Curious," she said with a smile, "so incredibly curious about everything, and intelligent. Zephyr, I think this child is going to be smarter than both of us." Zephyr reached out and gently placed his hand over hers on her belly. The moment he made contact, Elena felt a surge of joy that seemed to come from the baby itself. It was as if their child could sense both parents and was happy to feel them together. "The little one likes when we're both here," Elena whispered. Over the past month, Zephyr had been working tirelessly to prepare for the birth, using his advanced knowledge and the salvage technology from both their escape pods. He had built medical equipment that looked like something from a science fiction movie, devices that glowed with soft light and hummed with energy, monitors that could track both Elena and the baby's health in ways that Earth medicine couldn't match. "I've been thinking about names," Elena said as they walked back to their camp. "Something that would work in both our languages." "What names do you like?" Zephyr asked, his musical voice carrying notes of excitement. Stella, Elena said, it means star in my language, because she was conceived under alien stars in a place neither of us expected to call home. Zephyr repeated the name, his accent making it sound like a beautiful song. Stella, yes, I like this name. In my language, we would say it means light. Bringer, as Elena's due date approached, strange things began happening around their camp. The plants in their garden grew larger and more vibrant than ever before. The stream's water became clear and seemed to sparkle with its own light. Even the local animals behaved differently, approaching their camp without fear and sometimes simply sitting nearby, as if they were keeping watch. It's like the planet knows something special is happening, Elena observed one evening as they watched a group of the local creatures, which looked like a cross between deer and birds, grazing peacefully near their shelter. Life recognizes life, Zephyr said thoughtfully. Your child carries the essence of both our peoples. Perhaps the planet senses this new kind of existence. Elena was fascinated by the changes, but she was also growing nervous about the birth itself. No human had ever given birth to a hybrid child before. No one from Zephyr's people had either, according to the ancient stories he had shared with her. They were entering completely unknown territory. What if something goes wrong? She asked him one night as they lay looking up at the stars. Zephyr turned to face her, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. Then we face it together, as we have faced everything else. But Elena, I believe everything will be well. I can feel the baby's strength. She is healthy and eager to meet us. 2 weeks later, Elena woke up in the middle of the night knowing that the time had come. A storm was raging outside their shelter, with winds howling and rain pounding against their walls. Lightning flashed across the sky in brilliant colors that didn't exist on Earth. Zephyr. She called softly, and he was beside her instantly. It's time, he asked, and she nodded. For the next several hours, Zephyr proved to be everything Elena could have hoped for in a partner. He activated all his medical devices, creating a warm, safe environment filled with gentle light and soothing sounds. He held her hand when the pain became intense, sharing his strength through their mental connection. Most importantly, he stayed calm and confident, which helped Elena stay calm too. I can sense her. Elena gasped during one particularly strong contraction. She's excited. She wants to meet us. Soon, Zephyr said gently, very soon now. As the storm reached its peak outside, Elena felt the final surge of energy she needed. With Zephyr's help and encouragement, she brought their daughter into the world just as a brilliant flash of lightning illuminated their shelter. The first thing Elena noticed was how quiet the baby was. Instead of crying, little Stella seemed to be taking in everything around her with wide, curious eyes. Her second observation was how beautiful their daughter was. Stella looked mostly human, but with subtle differences that marked her as something new and wonderful. Her skin had a slight shimmer to it, like Zephyr's, but much more subtle. Her eyes were larger than a typical human baby's, with an unusual depth that suggested intelligence beyond her minutes of age. But the most amazing thing happened. When Zephyr gently touched his daughter's tiny hand, Elena felt a warm wave of emotion. That didn't come from either of them. It came from Stella herself. A feeling of contentment and recognition, as if she knew exactly who her parents were and was happy to finally meet them. She's perfect, Elena whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. She is a miracle. Zephyr agreed, his voice filled with wonder. A bridge between worlds, a new kind of life. As Elena held her daughter for the first time, she felt the baby's mind gently touching hers. It was different from the connection she shared with Zephyr. Softer and simpler, but unmistakably there. Stella was telepathic from birth, able to share emotions and simple thoughts with both her parents. Outside, the storm was beginning to calm. The wild winds died down to gentle breezes, and the lightning faded to a soft glow on the horizon. It was as if the planet itself was celebrating the arrival of this new kind of life. Elena looked at Zephyr, who was gazing at their daughter with an expression of pure love and amazement. What happens now? She asked softly. Now, Zephyr said, gently stroking Stella's tiny hand. We begin a new chapter, not just for us, but for both our peoples. Our daughter is proof that different kinds of life can come together and create something beautiful. Elena smiled, feeling more complete than she ever had in her entire life. Their little family was unlike anything that had ever existed before, but it felt absolutely right. They had found love in the most unexpected place and created new life. Against all odds, Stella made a soft cooing sound and seemed to smile at both her parents. In that moment, Elena knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family. 2 years had passed since that stormy night when Stella came into the world, and Elena could hardly believe how much their lives had changed. She watched her daughter playing in their garden, carefully tending to the plants with a gentleness that amazed her every day. "Mama, look," Stella said, holding up a flower that had been wilting just moments before. In the little girl's hands, the flower began to bloom again, its petals opening to reveal brilliant colors that seemed to glow from within. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Elena said, though she still felt amazed every time she saw her daughter's abilities. Stella could do things that neither human nor Kithran children could do. She could make plants grow faster, predict when storms were coming, and most remarkably, she could speak to both her parents without using words at all. "Papa says the signal machine is almost ready," Stella announced, switching effortlessly between speaking out loud and sending thoughts directly to Elena's mind. Elena looked toward their workshop, where Zephyr had been working for weeks on their most ambitious project yet, using salvage parts from both their crashed ships and new materials they had discovered on the planet. He was building a communication device powerful enough to reach both Earth and his home world of Kithara. The past 2 years had been the happiest of Elena's life, but she knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. Both Earth and Kithara would be searching for their missing people, and now, with Stella's help, they might finally be able to send a signal strong enough to be detected. "Are you ready for visitors?" Elena asked her daughter, sitting down beside her in the soft grass. Stella tilted her head thoughtfully, a gesture she had inherited from Zephyr. "Will they understand about our family?" Elena felt her heart squeeze with worry. That was the question that kept her awake at night. How would either of their civilizations react to discovering that a human and a Kithran had not only survived together, but had somehow created a child? Stella was proof that the boundaries between species weren't as solid as everyone believed. "I don't know, baby," Elena said honestly. "But whatever happens, Papa and I will protect you." That evening, as the planet's twin moons rose over their camp, Zephyr emerged from the workshop with a triumphant expression on his face. "It's finished," he announced, holding up a device that looked like a crystal flower made of metal and light. Elena felt excitement and nervousness warring in her chest. "Are you sure it will work?" "With Stella's help, yes," Zephyr said, looking at their daughter with pride. "Her abilities can amplify the signal in ways I never imagined possible." They gathered around the communication device as Zephyr activated it. The crystal petals began to glow with soft light, and Elena could feel energy building in the air around them. Stella placed her small hands on the device, and immediately the glow became much brighter. "I can feel them," Stella said, her voice filled with wonder. "There are people out there looking for you. Both your people, Mama, and Papa's people too." Elena watched in amazement as her daughter's enhanced abilities guided the signal across vast distances of space. Through their mental connection, she could sense Stella reaching out with her mind, touching the consciousness of beings light years away. "Message sent," Zephyr said quietly, powering down the device. "Now we wait." They didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, Elena woke to the sound of ships approaching their planet. Not just one ship, but several, coming from different directions. Through Stella's enhanced senses, they could tell that both human and Kithran vessels were arriving. "What do we do?" Elena asked Zephyr as they watched the ships descend toward their planet. "We tell them the truth," Zephyr said firmly. "We show them what we have built here. We show them." Stella. The first people to arrive were a team of human scientists and military officers, followed shortly by a group of Kithrans who moved with the same graceful gestures Elena had grown to love in Zephyr. Both groups seemed shocked to find the small family living peacefully together. Captain Rodriguez, the leader of the human expedition, stared at Elena in disbelief. Dr. Vasquez, we've been searching for you for over 2 years. When we received your signal, we thought it was impossible. Many things seem impossible until they happen, Elena replied, holding Stella's hand as both groups of rescuers tried to process what they were seeing. The Kithran leader, whose name translated to something like Harmony Singer, approached Zephyr with obvious concern. Through their translator device, Elena heard him ask, Zephyr, what has happened here? The child, she carries the essence of both species. She carries hope, Zephyr replied simply. She is proof that our peoples can create something beautiful together. What followed were hours of intense discussions, medical examinations, and political debates. Both the humans and Kithrans wanted to study Stella, to understand how her existence was possible. Some wanted to take the family back to their respective home worlds for further research. But Elena and Zephyr had anticipated this reaction. Over the past months, they had documented everything about their experience on the planet. Elena's scientific training had led her to keep detailed records of Stella's development, the changes in her own abilities, and the planet's unique properties. This world changed us, Elena explained to the assembled scientists. It's not just that we survived. Here, we thrived here. The planet itself seems to enhance telepathic abilities and promote harmony between different forms of life. Stella, who had been quietly listening to all the adult conversations, finally spoke up. This is our home, she said in both English and Kithran, her young voice carrying authority that surprised everyone. We don't want to leave. Elena felt a surge of pride in her daughter's confidence. Despite being only 2 years old, Stella possessed wisdom that went far beyond her age. After much debate, a solution was reached. The planet would become a joint research station, with both human and Kithran scientists working together to study its unique properties. Elena and Zephyr would serve as liaisons between the two species, sharing their knowledge and helping to build understanding. Most importantly, their family would remain together on the world that had become their true home. Are you happy with this decision? Elena asked Zephyr as they watched the construction of the new research facilities begin. Very happy, he replied, wrapping his arm around her as they watched Stella playing with children from both species, who had arrived with the research teams. We have created something new here. Not just Stella, but a new way for our peoples to work together. Elena smiled as she watched her daughter effortlessly switching between languages and communicating telepathically with kids from both civilizations. Stella was exactly what Zephyr had said she would be, a bridge between worlds. 6 months later, Elena stood on the observation deck of the new research station, looking out over their expanded settlement. The purple sand still sparkled in the sunlight, but now it was dotted with buildings where humans and Kithrans worked side by side, learning from each other and studying the planet's mysteries. Mama, Stella said, running up to her with excitement. Guess what? There's going to be another baby. Elena's hand instinctively went to her stomach, where new life was indeed beginning to grow. She and Zephyr had decided they wanted Stella to have a sibling, another bridge between their peoples. As she looked out at the thriving community they had helped create, Elena realized that what had started as a disaster had become the greatest adventure of her life. She had found love in the most unexpected place, created a family that shouldn't have been possible, and helped build a future where different species could work together in harmony. The stars above looked down on a world where the impossible had become reality, where love had conquered the boundaries between species, and where hope had taken the form of a little girl who could speak to hearts across the galaxy.